What's up, YouTube? Your boy back once again. Yes, you seeing what you think you see it. Your eyes are not deceiving you. You're looking at what you're looking at. Finally, Spitz has come back to do Orlando Magic videos. And we got a lot to talk about. We got a lot to unpack and talk about because we got to sit up and talk about what is really wrong, what's the real problem with our Orlando Magic. But before we get into that, hey, if you liking the content and you want more Orlando Magic content, hey man, you know what you gotta do. I need you to like, share, subscribe. I need you to comment on all the videos, share the videos on all social media platforms, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, Snapchat, any type of social media platform you use. Make sure you share on them same social media platforms. Also, follow me on social media as well. The link in the description below. Hey, I'm gonna need y'all help. Y'all want more magic content? Y'all want more magic videos? I'm gonna need y'all help. So I need you to tell a friend, to tell a friend, to tell a friend, to tell a friend, to tell some more friends, and put them on game with the channel so we can get this channel growing and growing and growing. Really, really appreciate that. Now, let's talk about what's the problem with the Orlando Magic. Jeff Wellman and the Orlando Magic can't shoot. All right, that's the end of the video. No, I'm just playing. But seriously, though, what is the real problem with the Orlando Magic? Now, the trade deadline came and went, and the Orlando Magic did absolutely nothing. Let me repeat that. Did absolutely nothing. And the fan base, for the most part, was in an uproar. The fan base was livid. They were shocked. They were surprised. They can't believe that the Orlando Magic let the trade deadline came and gone and not do absolutely no type of move. We've seen all the moves going around here. I think the Orlando Magic is one of 3 teams in the whole NBA, 30 teams, did not make any type of move. They didn't even make a move and trade somebody for cash consideration. They did absolutely nothing. And I see it on Twitter. I seen it on Instagram. I seen it on YouTube. Shout out to the Magic HQ. I was inside the Twitter space after the trade deadline. Then people were in the uproar. People were ready to abandon the team, talking about fire Jeff Wellman. People talking about Paolo might end up leaving. That type of fear and I guess that type of PTSD because of what's happened with Shaq and Tracy McGrady and also Dwight Howard. What happened with our past stars in this franchise organization. That fear is starting to rise back up because even though this is just year 3 of Paolo, people kind of can see that coming when an organization sits back and sits on their hands. Now, I'm be honest with y'all. I'm not surprised that Magic didn't make a move. I'm really not. Was it disappointing? Absolutely. But was I surprised? No, because I kind of figured they wasn't going to make a move. All the rumors and the stuff that had us tied to people like Colin Sexton or Kobe White or Cam Johnson and things like that. I kind of knew that wasn't going to happen, especially a move like a Trae Young or LaMelo Ball. I definitely knew that wasn't about to happen. Again, disappointing, absolutely, but surprising, no. I ain't gonna lie, I am kind of ain't gonna say surprised, but I thought it was kind of interesting that they didn't even trade anybody for cash consideration. I ain't gonna say it surprised me that they didn't. I thought they would probably most likely do that, but I knew for in the most part that they was not going to make a trade. I just knew that they weren't going to make a trade because I actually been talking about the Orlando Magic making a trade since last year. I've been on Twitter and commenting, talking about the Orlando Magic making trades, and a lot of people back then during last year and during the summer and earlier this season were against it. So I kind of figured that the fan base, as we got closer to the trade deadline, especially we've been on the run that we've been on. I know we just won tonight against the San Antonio Spurs, but on the run that we've been on, as far as the losing run is what I mean, that I think they like the fan base wants the team to make some type of move and some type of change, and I think our holes are very glaring, but the holes themselves, again, they can't shoot. They're not a good shooting team. This might be one of the worst shooting teams in the last 10 years. The worst shooting team in the last 10 years, if I'm not mistaken. We are 29th in field goal percentage and we're 30th in three-pointers. Like we're just a bad shooting team, and like we cannot continue to win games or get to where we need to go with that type of shooting performance. So we do need to add shooting, but that's one of the problems. That's not the main problem of the Orlando Magic. The main problem of the Orlando Magic is that they lack self awareness. The organization itself lacks self awareness. And it's kind of surprising because this organization, this regime, started to seem like, especially with Jeff, that maybe they started to have self awareness because of how we got to this point that we got to. Now, again, way back when, after when in the 2019 season, when we made the playoffs and Vooch became an all-star and Vooch was a free agent. I was on it. You go look back at my previous videos that I did not want the Orlando Magic to re-sign Vooch because I kind of knew that that might have been the ceiling. You going out there beating Toronto in game one and then end up losing in five might have been the ceiling, how the way that team was constructed. But the Orlando Magic brought him back because again, he was your first All Star. He ended the longest drought of the playoffs in the Eastern Conference. He was your only All Star, your first All Star since Dwight Howard. So it made sense from that standpoint. You're getting to the playoffs, you're winning things like that. You have an All Star. You don't want to do that. And then the following year, even though COVID hit, that team was rolling before COVID hit, before the JI injury that January, before COVID hit, and the season got paused and postponed before we went to the bubble, and we still made the playoffs again against Milwaukee, won a playoff game, and then end up losing four straight. So you thought that this team could be turning the corner potentially, but when the season started, when the 2020-2021 season started, and Markel J.I. was already hurt, and then Markel gets hurt, you kind of start seeing the writing on the wall, and they made the right decision to go ahead and move on, get rid of Vooch, get rid of Aaron Gordon, get rid of Fournier, get and acquire draft assets, and let's go ahead and rebuild. You got two draft picks that draft. You go out there, you draft Jalen Suggs, and you also get Franz. The following year, you lucked up. You get the number one overall pick. The lottery ball bounces your way. You end up getting the lottery pick. That lottery pick turns into Paolo. And right then and there, your rebuild was over. It wasn't a long rebuild process because you drafted your superstar. I believe that Paolo Banchero and with this night tonight withstanding the past couple of weeks withstanding because I still think he's coming back from his injury and I think his injury was worse than Franz's. I think his oblique was worse than Franz. I believe that Paolo is can be the best player on the championship team and he's a guy who can consistently be an MVP, consistently be in the MVP conversation. Once the moment that you got that guy on your team, your rebuild was over. And then you already have his running mate in Franz. Your rebuild is over. Now you just have to surround those two players with a team to go and compete for years to come. But I feel like, again, lacking self awareness. They are still operating like we're still in this rebuild. And you let things like last year's playoff series, the seventh game of you taking the Cavs to the seventh game, kind of fool you a little bit. I think that team last year kind of overachieved, especially taking it to 7 games. And you feel like, oh, we're right there. We just got to do a little small tweak. We just got to do, and we just got to add KCP. Just do a small little tweak, and we find, hey, the plan this year was to go out and be the 4 seed. And I do believe if both Paulo and Franz doesn't get hurt and both don't tear their oblique, that the Magic are probably in the 4 seed right now. But I think their injury should open up, not open the possibility, but open up your eyes to, hey, you're putting a lot on these guys' shoulders. A lot of the scoring responsibility is on Franz and Paulo, and if they not scoring, the team, their teammates are not helping them and not giving them enough for you to win. And now on a night-to-night basis, you might have sprinkle in some games. It's an 82-game season. So you're going to have games where Anthony Black scores 20, 25 points. You're going to have another game where Cole Anthony goes off for 27 points. You're going to have games like that throughout the season because it's an 82-game season. Other teams are playing back-to-back. Other teams are having load management. They're resting their starters, all these different type of things. And also, there's a such thing as matchups as well. But in a night-in and night-out basis, you're riding with Paulo and Franz, and if they happen to have a cold night or coming back off of an injury, you're not really doing that much. You're just really not. You're just really not doing that much offensively. And that's the problem. And the organization needs to understand that. And they need to realize what they're doing. Like I said, they're lacking self-awareness. They're still operating like a small market team. They're operating like we got 4, 5 years because these guys are young. I feel like that's a flawed mindset. Even though these guys are young, You need to actually operate and know what you have right there in front of you. Like I said, you have a guy, and I feel like can be the best player on the All Star, be the best player on the championship team. He's a perennial All Star and a guy who could constantly be in the MVP conversation. You already have his running mate, another guy who could drop and give you 30 any given night, and another guy who could be an All Star in Franz. Everybody else, everybody else, in my opinion, is expendable. And that comment by Jeff saying that he had some deals and thought some deals he had on the table, but it felt like other organizations was trying to fleece them and trying to take advantage of them. I I just don't believe that. I call cap on that. I just don't. I don't believe it to the extent that he's trying to say. Unless he was out there trying to get LaMelo Ball, Trae Young. Unless he was trying to get the big fish. If he was trying to get the biggest fish out there, then that's different. But the guys who the Magic were tied to didn't get moved, and the Magic have assets, and maybe they're like once again back to lacking self-awareness. Maybe the Magic, like and Jeff themselves, like overvalue their assets slightly too much. I mean, the names that were tied to the Magic were Kobe White, Colin Sexton, and then Cameron Johnson. Those are the guys that were mostly tied to him. The fans have thrown out the names like Anthony Simon. You've seen other reports, but don't know really how real those reports were. We're talking about LaMelo and Trae Young. I don't think that a trade for LaMelo, my personal opinion, a trade for LaMelo is just going out there to grab a name, just to grab a name. I don't know what I mean, he's a scorer. He's really not all that efficient when he shoots. So I think he would just be grabbing a name just to make a blockbuster trade, just to make a blockbuster trade. Trae Young, on the other hand, is a trade that I've been wanting the Magic to do for years. I know the contract situation and what you have to give up and things like that, but I do think that trade solves a lot of problems as far as helping to facilitate the ball, helping to score, shooting, things like that, spacing. I think the trade helps a lot. And again, I know people want to bring up his defense and stuff like that. I don't really care. The Magic themselves as a team are a great defense. If we dipped a little bit in defense, but we jumped tremendously in offense and shooting, I think I'll take that. But again, who knows if that's possible? It's probably not because of the contract situation, stuff like that. When you look at the other names, the Kobe Whites, the Colin Sextons, the Cameron Johnsons, and the Anthony Simons, those are easier moves to make and easier moves to facilitate, moves that the Magic have the assets. Like I said, after you drafted Paolo, your drafting days, in my opinion, were done. In 3 years, the Orlando Magic had 5 first round picks in three consecutive, like in 3 years, from 2023 to now 2025. The Orlando Magic had 5 first round picks in 2023, which I didn't want them to make one of those draft picks, let alone both of those draft picks. They had the sixth pick in the draft that turned to be Anthony Black. They had the 11th pick in the draft that turned out to be Jay Howard. Then 2024 had first pick in the draft, and pick 18 turned out to be Tristan Da Silva. Now this year they had pick 20. In 2025 they had two picks. They had their pick and they have Denver's pick, which again assets to move on. Not to mention your young players like Anthony Black, like Jet Howard, like your expiring contracts and Gary Harris. Because I think Gary Harris has a team option next year. After next season, a team option, so that will be expiring contract. Cole Anthony, things like that. You have other guys and assets to move to be able to get Kobe White, a Colin Sexton, a Cameron Johnson, or Anthony Simon. Again, people have been tied to the Colin Sexton. He's from a percentage standpoint, he's a better shooter from a percentage standpoint to those guys, but he also doesn't shoot as much as a volume. So that's the reason why I think his percentage is as high. I mean, like for instance, his 3-point percentage is 41.2. Kobe White's is 35.7. The difference is Colin, he only shoots 4 3-pointers a game. Kobe White shoots 8. Kobe White makes a little over 3 3-pointers a game, and Colin makes 1.9, 1.8 3 points a game. So he averages shooting three. He average shoots 4 3-pointers, and he only makes an average of 1.8. While Kobe White shoots at a higher volume. He's shooting 8 and averaging over 3. So that's the reason why his percentage is down is lower than lower than a Colin. So I don't really think Colin, in my opinion, fits. I would love to have Anthony Simon. I think that he's the guy who I think you could potentially, he can end up growing into being a great third option behind Paulo and Franz. And I think you still be able to have Jalen Suggs. And the problem with that Jalen definitely still be the point guard, and Anthony Simon would be the two. Things like that. Again, I wasn't a big fan of the KCP signing, but I knew the Magic were going to sign somebody like KCP because again, that's the Magic do. It just felt like Orlando Magic signing. Again, I wasn't interested in Paul George over the summer either. I wanted the Orlando Magic this past summer to make a move for Anthony Simon or a Darius Garland if he was available, or a DeJounte Murray if he was available, even when he was available because he ended up getting sent to New Orleans. I wanted the Orlando Magic to make that type of move this past summer versus signing KCP, honestly. But this is the thing. The Orlando Magic have to realize as an organization who they are and what they have in front of them. Like tonight, looking at the San Antonio Spurs. Wemby's only been in the NBA for 5 minutes, and the Spurs realized, hey, we need to go out there and get De'Aaron Fox. I'm not saying the Magic should have went out there and got De'Aaron Fox, but what I'm saying is they understood and realized that, hey, we have that dude. We have our franchise player. We have that guy right here, right now, a guy that's going to continuously and have us competing for NBA championships. We need to make sure we're taking care of him and make sure that we're building around him. We don't need to be sitting up here, oh, we're going to build through the draft and all this. Hey, we don't need no more young players on our team. We just don't. We do not need any more young players on our team. We don't. Not that type of young, not young as far as rookies. I mean, if you want to trade and get younger players throughout, they've already been playing in the NBA. But as far as like going out there and getting rookies, no, we don't need it. We don't need to be drafting. We should not be drafting all 5 of those first round picks. We've already drafted 3. We have 2 left. We should not be drafting all these picks. We shouldn't. Because you already had not only your star player, you had your second player. You already had them. And for the most part, you got your third already in Jalen Suggs. And again, what's the crime if you end up getting Anthony Simon and now Jalen goes from being your third best player to your fourth best player? If Jalen Suggs is your fourth best player, tell me what world that's bad. Please explain to me what world is that bad that Jalen Suggs is your fourth worst player, is your fourth best player. When your star players is Paulo, Franz, in whatever order. But I think it's Paulo, Franz, Anthony Simon, and then Jalen Suggs. Now I do think that Jalen Suggs overall is probably better than Kobe White. But then again, you have a player like Kobe White. You change the ball handling situation because I don't really want Jalen Suggs constantly being the primary ball handler. I don't want him constantly bringing the ball up and down the court. So I'd rather get the ball out of his hands anyway. So a Kobe White would benefit that. Like I said, my preference, what I would prefer, would be Trae Young. I know that would be difficult, and more than likely, if you get Trae Young, you'll be losing Jalen Suggs, not only because of the money situation, just also because of you're gonna have to give up something to get something. And again, people also talk about draft picks as well. I don't care about these draft picks. Like I said, you have to understand and realize and have self-awareness as a franchise, who and what you are. You do. Because people want to bring up Boston. Boston constantly was tweaking that franchise around until they got a championship. Remember, they went out there, they swung at Kyrie Irving. It didn't work. But they already had Jalen Suggs and not Jalen Suggs. They already had Jalen Brown and Jason Tatum when they swung for Kyrie Irving. It didn't work. They still, to get their championship, they had to go out there and they had to get I can't think of his name, Drew Holiday. Same thing with Giannis in Milwaukee. They had to go out there and get Drew Holiday to get the championship, and then they still swung once again to go out there and get Dame. The Golden State Warriors, who was built through the draft, they realized as they was competing against the Cleveland Cavaliers, hey, we have to bring in Kevin Durant. Like these championship organizations realize and understand that, hey, we can't just sit on our hands. We have to bring in. Now, I'm not saying go out there and push all the chips on the table to get a LaMelo Ball or to get a Trae Young, even though I would prefer to have Trae Young on this team. But you have to start making some of these moves, because if you don't, you will start to alienate your superstars. And that's how we get into the Shaq and the Tracy and the Dwight leaving. I mean, think about this. I know I've heard that, hey, we're 5 years away anyway because how young we are. Shaq only played for the Orlando Magic 4 years. Same thing with Tracy. They both only played with the Orlando Magic for 4 years. They were gone after their 4th year. Like, you don't have 5 years. You don't. You just don't. You don't have to. You do not want to alienate your stars. You want them to know that, hey, we are here to compete for championships. We're not just trying to be good in the East. We're trying to compete for championships. So you have to change your mindset. You have to realize who you are. You have to have self-awareness and realize that, hey, we have the dogs. We have them right here. We have the cornerstone pieces right here. We have to improve upon that and do what we need to do to compete for championships instead of out here possibly in the play-in. The Magic right now, or the AC, could almost in the, or not almost, they are in the play-in. There's a good chance that the Orlando Magic could end up being the play-in. I know what people are going to say. Oh, we know Paolo and Franz was hurt and things like that this season. Again, this season, pretty much from that standpoint, I will agree with you. It's more than likely a wash. But you do have to think about going forward. And that's why when you don't make these small moves during the trade deadline and during the summer, you eventually end up have to make and have to swing for the fences and have to swing for the LaMelo Balls, have to swing for the Trae Youngs. You have to swing for those players. You have to try to get those players right there. Like, that's what you have to go do that. Like, you have to go out there and get those players. When you pass up on these small deals, now you got to go out there and try to get these big deals. You just do. Because if you don't, that's what alienates your superstars. Case in point, I remember during the whole Dwight Howard era, there was a report that Dwight wanted, if I'm not mistaken, I think he wanted Chris Paul. He wanted Chris Paul. I was like, man, hey, I like Jameer Nelson. I know you fall in love with the homegrown talent. I like Jameer Nelson. I mean, hey, even though Chris Paul's a better player, man, I'd rather have Jameer Nelson. Woo, woo, woo. And eventually we end up having to trade Dwight Howard because he ended up asking for a trade. I know a lot of stuff also went with that, but who's to say if you go out there and you trade for Chris Paul, that's a completely different situation. I know the Orlando Magic franchise is filled with what is fitting that Disney and Marvel is in Disney, and they have the whole what if series because the Orlando Magic are just from a franchise are filled with what ifs. But that's one of the what ifs right there. Like, if they would have went out there and made that trade for Chris Paul, who's to say that the Orlando Magic don't ever lose Dwight Howard? Who's to say the Orlando Magic win a championship? Who's to say the Orlando Magic might not ever lose Dwight Howard and we don't go through that area in this situation that we went throughout the 2010s? Who's to say that that doesn't happen? And again, the Orlando Magic, as an organization themselves, after losing the finals to the Lakers, they went out there and they got Vince Carter. And then after that wasn't working, they went out there and tried to go out there. And they went out there and they got Hedo Turkoglu and got Gilbert Arenas and Richardson. Like, they made those trades because when you were in that situation, you have that cornerstone piece. At that time, it was Dwight Howard. You have to constantly tweak and make those type of moves. Now, we can sit up here and argue and go back and forth. Was those moves the right moves to make, those specific moves? And I can agree with you that maybe those specific moves themselves weren't the right moves, but you can't not do anything. You have to have self-awareness and understand who you are as an organization. And the rebuild is over. You have your franchise guy. There is no more rebuild. Now what we're doing is trying to compete and put the best team around our superstars so we can compete for championships. Not for division titles, not for play-ins, not for in-season tournaments, for actual NBA championships. We have to do what we got to do. Like, share, subscribe if you haven't, comment below if you haven't, click that bell, get more videos. I holla.